it was the age of the character actor. You know what I mean? The Hoffman, Hackman, Al Pacino, like it was this time where okay, yeah, not terribly attractive actors were really taking a lot of their roles and, you know, making them naturalistic in a way that, you know, obviously Bogart and Cary Grant never bothered to do. Like this was a new period for actors, and it was a new period for directors too. You know, like these were the directors who, okay, yeah, fair enough, they grew up off of the Hollywood system, but at the same time, you know, they were making movies without permits with their best friends, you know, like they were making porn. Like these guys, you know, like they weren't, you know, like these dudes are the ones who just had all of the passion and absolutely none of the support. And that's what honestly also made this movie fantastic. Like you felt that kind of ensemble nature. Like basically take, I don't know, a movie like 12 Angry Men, you know what I mean? Like, and you just have all of these individual actors playing these individual characters, like Keith David, especially, like he makes you nervous the way he's constantly being nervous, you know, and it upsets you and it keeps you on edge. And the fact that it could be anyone coming from anywhere, it knows when to go dark. It knows when to throw it in your face. It knows when to go slow. It knows when to speed it up. The part where the head like shoots out that one flesh line and drags itself across the floor, and you're like, fuck, how do you kill this thing? Like if one little bit of it is still gone, how did it's dragging itself across the fucking floor? And just scenes like that make you constantly feel like you're helpless, what really brings the movie across. What really brings the movie across. And it's definitely a movie like most people want, you know, like Aliens, Predator. Actually, Predator, we had the answer of what would happen if that happened in the city. But like Aliens, I don't think, you know, I think the aliens would probably get mowed down. Like I think it would probably be pretty nasty if the thing happened in the city. It would be awful. It would be horrible. Like it would not end the way the Predator ended. Like it would be, yeah, it would not end that way at all. So it hands down, and the ending, which was, you know, I think one of the best open endings in horror films ever. Personally, like it really stood out to me because then it was a little more rare for that sort of thing to happen. But but few people did it as well. Let me put it that way. To be fair, there is a 2011 version. If you do like CGI, there is a 2011 version, but at the same, it's not as good. It's not as good because they don't create, well, because they don't create the atmosphere. You know what I mean? They let the gore be the thing that's most important instead of the gore being part of it. A lot of people think it's just the CGI. A lot of people think because there are actual women in it, you know. Yeah, then there's that. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that's the issue at all. I think it's because John Carpenter captured something dark and stomach turning that twisted your imagination. And the 2011 version is a bunch of people running around screaming while the CGI monster comes and gets you. And there's a, you know, there's an artistry and when you, I feel like when you do practical effects, like the amount of work that goes into practical effects, like it is so intentional. Like you are not careless with it at all. Like everything you mean to do with these special effects has to look intentional and is so much work you believe in it, you know. And I like, you know, that's right. Another element. The 2011 versions, it's fun, like if you just want to see all sorts of, you know, again, body contortions and blood, by all means, you know, the 2011 version is worth a watch. But the original The Thing sums up everything and is the definition of horrifying. So I'm gonna say that one.
Yeah, I absolutely, along with you, is just a monumentally scary and well done film, an auteur film. The very fact that it's John Carpenter's The Thing, right? Or later his films would be called John Carpenter's, and I think that's on the head of that. It's I think the line when you sum it up. And you talk about the scene that just always comes up for me in that when the head has pulled itself off the body, even just a minute before that. I think it's Wilford Brimley who's had the heart attack, or whoever has had the heart attack. And the guy, they're shocking him with the paddles, and his chest cavity opens up and becomes a giant mouth and rips his arms off, right? Which, at least, you know, maybe we see that stuff coming now. Maybe we're immune enough to body horror, but I remember jumping out of the seat in that. And I just love Kurt Russell's reaction to that whole scene when he comes in with a flamethrower. I says, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." After he's burned the body and he sees the head just sitting there yelling at him. There's just something so true about that. That's just exactly the right, you know, talk about the right reaction to the moment. That's how someone would react to that.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
sorry.
I was going to say, that's the great thing. Like I said, you know, these character actors, everyone is just freaking out. Like, these are grown men freaking out. And that's exactly, like, they are freaking out. And it's like, yes, no one would be at all cool or in control. Or I think the 2011 version tries to throw in a love story. It's like, no, dude, that's not happening right now. Everyone would be too petrified to think anyone is hot at this moment.
Well, I mean, come on, that's a horror movie trope right there. That's constant, that's consistent. I mean, shit, we just had another Alien sequel where somehow they pigeonholed a fuck scene in the middle of like people getting fucking ripped apart by aliens, and that was a plot point. So that's nothing new. It's sad, it's tired, it doesn't make any sense. But to say like people are too scared to fuck, that has never been the case. Shit, there have been zombie movies like in the middle of the fucking incursion. They're like, "Hey, you want to fuck right now?" And they're like, "Yeah, cool." And then that guy goes on to have a hit sitcom. So things are really weird across the board, no matter how you look at it.
But the point is that's movie logic.
Okay, but then you can't say in a movie someone's not going to do it in a horror movie. That's the point. I'm just saying. I think one, I like Josh. I totally agree. The Thing should be lauded as one of, forget horror movies, just best movies. There's so many different reasons why. I'm not fully with you on the character actor thing. If only you're going to argue that Kurt Russell was Snake Plissken through that movie, then yeah, I'm with you. But everyone else. There's like, sure, Wilford Brimley was Wilford Brimley, but I don't know if that was a character more than the fact that same way the argument with people say with Pacino less than De Niro. You meet Pacino, that's kind of who he is. Like, there's no real deal with it. De Niro is kind of a different person when you meet him. There's a lot of different ways to break down. Although I have to point out the genius of this topic and how you're moving into it, because in our preset of our conversation, we talked about Quakers and the drop of Quaker Oats, and then Wilford Brimley into The Thing. I mean, that is why you come to the Esteemed Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. We connect shit that you're not even trying to get to. I would also point out that the reason why The Thing really works so well as far as the horror set is the same reason why the prequel for Star Wars sucked, in the sense that you can't rely on CGI, and puppetry still is king. It may still come off sometimes as corny, especially in today's day and age, but it still holds up. The Thing still holds up versus almost any other thing when you start to compare it shot for shot. So puppetry really does still add king. In the same way, the first Star Wars is still the best one. And when they're fucking just dropping ships in front of you with fishing wire, everyone's like, yeah, whatever, that's cool. That works.
I'll throw in these last little two things for The Thing before we move on. But you know, it's interesting that you mentioned a remake of 2011, because technically, Greg, that is a prequel. If you watch closely,
that is technically a prequel.
It is a prequel. It's supposed to be what's happening before. Yeah, it's not well done, and has, you know, suffers from similar problems that other prequels who we just mentioned suffer from. But it's also, you know, the John Carpenter was remaking The Thing from Another World from 1951. Yeah, pretty much the same plot that tried to scare people in much the same ways, referencing the Red Scare, of course. You never know who it is, right? You never know who's the commie. Could be your neighbor, could be your son. He's probably gay too. All these fears, right? Like, oh my God, what is happening in America? Um, you know, but Carpenter modernized it and just brought it into such a way of like, you literally don't know. This isn't a matter of belief. This is another being that is going to consume you and make a carbon copy of you, kind of, and destroy your consciousness while taking your consciousness all at the same time. So just a wonderful, scary tale that absolutely.
And also that's another reason I brought up and the character actor issue. It was the artistry of the whole movie. The artist that from the practical special effects, the directing, the lighting, the location, everything about it. I wanted to appreciate it on that level too, because it is damn near a perfect movie.
No, I would.
No argument.
Yeah, not much pushback.
Damn near a perfect. Even the way it starts, the dog running from the helicopter. It puts you mentally and emotionally in a place like, it's like, first of all, what would make white folks want to hurt a dog? But then you also get caught, like,
that's when you know shit's real.
Yeah, because
when they're killing dogs,
when they're killing dogs, if they're hurting a dog, like, what could this possibly be? And the fact that it's an attack helicopter going after a dog, why in the world? And it puts you on edge right from the beginning.
Yep.
So it's a brilliantly made movie.
Even quiet.
Also, you can't understand what's being said.
Oh yeah, they're Norwegian.
That also to me is a part of the genius. I mean, just as much as the ending, which I would argue is one of the best endings with Greg, is forget horror movies. It's just one of the best endings out there. The whole movie, I still feel is one of the best movies. I'll take it there. But how it starts and the fact that it adds to the tension by you're hearing things that no one in the crowd, let's be real, is understand. Maybe there's a couple of Swedes and Norwegians and all that hearing it, be like, oh yeah, that's not what they're saying. But everyone else is like, what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. and then there's like, death involved. So then it's like, holy shit, like we didn't understand, and it took it to that level anyway.
Well, with that, I'll interject. I'll start with gonna introduce myself in my own 10 minutes of infamy here, because I, tried to think long and hard about this one, and I'll let you in on my internal process that I was immediately thinking going right to The Exorcist. I mean, it's pretty clear why it's there, but on a personal note, Greg, you mentioned a lot about like sense of dread and the power of the imagination and the fear that it caused. So in my family, there was a famous story with my father. Now, growing up, your dad is the guy who never, at least in my experience, your dad was unflappable, right? He doesn't get scared. Your dad's not scared of the monster under the bed. That's ludicrous. That doesn't happen. Come on. Like, he's past that. He's an adult. He's your dad. He's the one who calms your ass down, or at least should. So there was a story that my father had read the book of The Exorcist, and it had scared him so badly during that time. It was a New Year's Eve that he stayed up the entire night to read the book. And he always felt that the movie never scared him as much, because there was something about the power of his imagination in the pages of those books and everything he was reading, which was unlike anything he had read. I think it was, New Year's Eve, probably like 1972 to 73. So a year before I'm born. And that he was just so terrified by it, And I had this opposite effect that I don't know what it was. There was something about when I first saw the movie, it was all of what my dad was imagining brought to life in cinema. All right. And so much of those same things going on with the directing and everything else going on there, that William Friedkin did similar things that you were talking about with Carpenter with The Thing. He would have a guy going around with a starter pistol, randomly pulling the trigger and making loud banging sounds. So he would just startle people because he wanted everyone to look nervous and not, just like you were saying with Keith David, nobody seemed happy, right? Everyone seemed on edge and, and had that air of what the fuck is going to happen next. Right. So there was something about it that brings that, that brought that out. But I have to say that it's one of those things. It's still a masterpiece of film. I mean, it still